5D Mark IV is the all-round professional DSLR that's designed to perform in any situation. If you haven't already seen it, make sure you check out the first video in our series. In this video, I'll be sharing with you more hints and tips how to get the most out of your new camera. So let's get started. Okay, first off, I'm going to show you how to change the autofocus points on the 5D Mark IV. You'll see at the top rear the AF point selection button. By pressing this button and also hitting the M function button on top, you'll see it will cycle through the top options of changing your focus pattern. Once you've selected the focus pattern, simply use the rear toggle to move the AF point selection around your LCD screen. This will help you to recompose or compose any shot that you wish. So now I'll move on to the AF shooting modes. By pressing the AF and drive button, you'll notice on the rear LCD a number of different autofocus selection options, starting off with one shot. One shot focus enables you to focus singly on any given subject, and it will lock and hold focus. Now moving on to AI servo focus. AI servo focus enables you to track a moving subject, continually enabling the camera to focus while it follows a moving subject. So AI servo focus is best used when tracking moving subjects, for example, a sports match or wildlife photography. And then finally, you have the AI focus mode. AI focus is a hybrid combination between one-shot focus and AI servo focus. Put simply, AI focus will enable the camera to make up its mind if a subject's moving or not. So whilst an object is stationary, AI focus will hold focus on that subject, and as soon as that subject starts to move, it will automatically switch into AI servo for you. 5D Mark IV also has different customizable ways of setting up the camera to give you different focus cases for different situations. In the first page of your focus menu, you'll notice 6 different available case modes. These case modes are basically used to change the way that the camera tracks and follows and focuses on subjects. Now we're moving on to the main command dial of the camera, where you can change different settings on the camera itself. So we're going to start out first in AV mode. AV mode is best used when you want to select the aperture, which then enables the camera to set the shutter speed for you. Where you would use aperture priority is where you want to control depth of field. Very useful if you want a blurred background. You would dial in a larger aperture, blur the background. Whereas landscape, obviously you would want a deeper depth of field. By selecting a smaller aperture, the camera then automatically sets the shutter speed for you to give you a balanced exposure. And moving on to TV mode, TV is best used where shutter speed is a priority. So in these cases, you may have a sporting event where you need to track a fast-moving subject that ideally needs a fast shutter speed in order to freeze action. So while in TV mode, you can select the shutter speed that's required to freeze action, or to use a slower shutter speed to introduce movement to change the mood in your scene. As you select the shutter speed required, you will notice also at the top the aperture is being selected automatically by the camera to maintain a balanced and correct exposure. And then finally, a combination of two giving you complete creative control would be to put the camera in manual mode. While in manual mode, you will notice that shutter speeds are selected by using the front shutter dial, and apertures changed by using the rear aperture dial. A commonly used method of controlling your focus in camera used by professionals would be what's known as back button focus. On the rear of the camera here, you will notice the AF on button. The advantage of back button focus is it enables the photographer to control focus in the camera and chooses when to focus and when to lock focus. To activate back button focus, you first need to go to the quick start menu of your camera. By hitting the Q button, you will activate your custom control menu. Once inside the custom control menu, you'll see that you can scroll through a number of different options of the button layouts on the 5D Mark IV. While in the custom control menu, to activate back button focus, you first need to disable autofocus from the front shutter button. By pressing your quick menu and going into your custom controls, you should have the first default option on screen being your shutter button. By hitting set and going into the shutter button, it asks what do you want the shutter to do. So firstly, you have autofocus and metering as an option, meaning that the camera will autofocus when depressing the front shutter button or using the back shutter button. To ensure the camera can hold focus when you need, you can now disable the actual autofocus from the front shutter button by scrolling across and selecting meter only. The camera will now perform autofocus by holding the back AF on button. This now enables the camera to maintain focus on a subject by holding in the AF on button only. We're now going to talk a little bit more about how to customize the button layout in your camera. By hitting the Q button, you can go into your custom controls menu. Whilst within the custom controls menu, you have the ability to change what each button on your camera does in order of preference to how you would prefer your camera be set up. Whether that be how the front shutter button reacts for autofocus, or for activating the multi-control pad on the back of your camera to enable the ability to move your autofocus points through the viewfinder without having to hit the AF selection button first. When using different exposure modes within your camera, specifically either manual, AV or TV, you need to understand the importance of exposure compensation. Let's jump into the back of the camera now to show you exactly what compensation is used for and when to use it. When in AV mode, you'll notice that the top dial enables you to change the aperture. By changing aperture, you will also notice that the camera will automatically set a suitable shutter speed to balance your exposure. At times when taking photos in AV, where you've selected an aperture and the camera has automatically set a shutter speed, there'll be times where you require the image to be brighter or darker, depending on how the camera has interpreted the main exposure. This is where exposure compensation is highly important. To change your exposure compensation, you simply use the rear dial and you'll see that your light meter here changes in third stop increments. An easy way to remember how exposure compensation works is one simple rhyme, which is right is bright. So by turning the rear dial to the right, your image will get brighter, up to 3 stops, and to the left, to -3 stops. We're now going to move on to the drive modes within the camera. Changing the drive mode enables you to control how the camera performs and focuses, from either a single shot or a multiple shot option. There'll be times in your photography where you require only one photo at a time or a multiple burst of photos. Simply press the drive and AF button, and on the rear LCD you'll notice you now have the option to change from a single shot, which will take one photo at a time, and then a continuous high-speed shooting, which enables the camera to take multiple frames in a row. So in high-speed mode, enabling your camera to take several photos per second. This is also where you will find your self-timers available to you, so either a 10-second self-timer or 2 seconds. There'll be times in photography where you require the interval timer. The interval timer is best used for setting up, for example, a time-lapse shoot, where you need the camera to be able to time how many images and the interval between in order to capture a series and sequence of images. To activate your interval timer, simply press the menu, and on the 4th page of the menu you will notice your interval timer. To select the interval on the timer, scroll to the interval timer option and hit the set button and press enable. To change the interval, you will also notice that once in the interval timer, you'll need to hit the info button to change the settings that you require. The interval timer now enables you to set in hours, minutes and seconds. The example you can see now, the camera will shoot every 10 seconds with an interval of 10 shots. You can at this point change the number of shots required. If you require an unlimited time, meaning the camera will continue to shoot every 10 seconds until the card is full or your battery runs flat, simply dial all the way to the left until you see unlimited. Then dial down to OK to select the interval. So now with the settings we've selected, it will take one shot every 10 seconds until the memory card is full. To know that your interval timer is set, simply look at the top LCD and you will notice here that the timer is set for your interval. To start your interval timer, you simply just hold the shutter button to take the first photograph. The easiest way to disable your interval timer is to simply turn the camera off and back on to return the camera to its standard operating mode. There are times in your photography where you require shutter speeds beyond 30 seconds. Now I'm going to take you through the bulb timer option. To activate bulb mode in your camera, simply turn the main command dial to B for bulb. To set your bulb timer, simply press the menu button. Now that the camera is in bulb mode, you will have the option to select bulb timer. By hitting the set button, scrolling to enable, your bulb timer is now active. To change the time required in your bulb timer, simply go back into hitting set on your bulb timer option in the menu and hit the info button to now have the abilities to select the time required for your shutter release in hours, minutes and seconds. For example, if I wanted to do a 2-minute exposure, simply select 2 minutes, arrow down to OK, and you'll see that at the top of the LCD, your timer is now set. So to start your bulb exposure, simply press the shutter button. It will now shoot for a full 2 minutes as selected, enabling to shoot beyond the 30 seconds in camera. Now we're going to talk you through the picture styles menu of your camera. Moving on to the back of camera, you will now see that you have the creative control button. By pushing the creative control button, you will now have the choice of changing your picture styles. Within the picture styles menu, you can change between a standard picture style, portrait modes, landscape, or fine detail, amongst others also down to monochrome. By selecting monochrome as a picture style, it will now enable the camera to shoot specifically in monochrome. You can now see that the camera is automatically set up into monochrome mode. An important point to make on using picture styles is that if shooting JPEG, the color information is lost at the point of capture, only recording a monochrome image. The advantage of shooting RAW when using different picture styles is that color information is also captured, meaning you can convert the image, if captured in monochrome, back to color. As with all Canon EOS cameras, you also have the ability to shoot video. To change from video and stills mode, you'll notice on the rear of camera you have the video and stills option on a switch. To activate video mode, simply turn the switch to video. Once in video mode, the 5D Mark IV has a touch-sensitive rear LCD. To control focus in video mode, simply use the touch screen to touch and focus where you want the camera to maintain focus during your video shooting. Once you've achieved focus on your subject for your video, simply hit the Start/Stop button to begin and end recording. You will know that you're recording by the red light on the top of the LCD screen. To stop recording, simply press the Start/Stop button again, and you will see that the red light disappears, and you are now stopped recording in video. Whilst in movie mode, you also have the ability to capture a time-lapse movie. Pressing the menu button enables you to scroll down into the time-lapse movie mode. Hitting the Set button and scrolling across to enable will activate this function. So once you've set the interval and number of shots, you will also notice at the bottom of the screen it will show you the total running time of that video. So in this example, it will show you that it will take you 19 minutes and 57 seconds, which will end up giving you a 10-second time-lapse video. The EOS 5D Mark IV also has the ability to capture multiple exposures in camera. To set multiple exposure, simply go to the back of your camera and press the Creative Control button. Once in the Creative Control menu, arrow across until you get multiple exposure as an option and hit set. To activate multiple exposure, you have two options, on and then on with continuous shooting. If you only want to capture one multiple exposure at a time, simply select the on function control to enable one multiple exposure frame to be taken each time and disabling after your multiple exposure has been taken. For continuous multiple exposures, where the camera remains within that function, select the on with continuous shooting. If you have selected the on with continuous shooting, always ensure that you disable this after use to return the camera to its standard mode of operation. Whilst in the multiple exposure menu, you will now see that you have the ability to change the number of exposures and modes. In this case, we've chosen to take a standard double exposure consisting of 2 images. Now that multiple exposure has been selected, you need to take your first image. You can either touch to control where the camera focuses and press the shutter release to take your first image. Now that we've captured the first frame of our multiple exposure, you will notice now that by moving the camera, a ghost of the first image appears. This will assist you in enabling to see where the first frame was placed and how to compose your second image by simply taking the second photo. Now that you've taken the second photo, you'll see that the first image and second image have been blended into one final composition. Whether you're a beginner, enthusiast, or a professional photographer, the 5D Mark IV has the ability to record to multiple cards. You'll notice at the side of the camera you have a CF card slot and an SD card slot. To control shooting to multiple cards, simply enter your menu, and in the yellow section of the menu, you will notice a Record Function Card Folder Select menu option. By pressing Set on this option, you now have the ability to control where your images end up on which card. Simply hit the Set button to change the functions. The Standard mode will record images to the card first put into your camera. Standard mode will record the image to the first card put in of the 2 cards available. Moving down to Auto Switch Card, Auto Switch Card enables you to fill one card and automatically switch to the second card once the first card is full. By selecting the Record Separately option, enables you to send, say, your RAW images to your CF card and the JPEGs to your SD card. And finally, the Record to Multiple option. This is the safest option to use to save all images captured to both cards, recording every image taken onto your CF and SD multiply. The 5D Mark IV has the option to shoot either in RAW or in JPEG or multiple, so you can shoot RAW and JPEG at the same time to any given card installed in the camera. You may be asking yourself, why do you shoot RAW? Shooting RAW in camera enables you to capture all data recorded across the entire pixel range of the camera sensor. If you're wishing to post-produce your images and have complete creative control, we recommend shooting RAW to give you every feasible option when editing the pictures later in post-production. If you want the best of both worlds, the camera also has the ability to shoot RAW and JPEG, meaning that you can take your JPEGs for instant sharing or email, as opposed to a RAW image, which does require specialized or proprietary software to open and manipulate the images. With so many customizable options in the 5D Mark IV, you may have set a function or feature which could change the way the camera performs. At any point, if you can't find or locate that function or feature, or if things aren't performing the way you were used to, the easiest way, without having to dive through your menu to find that function, is to simply hit your menu button, and in the yellow section of the menu, you will see Clear All Camera Settings. By selecting OK, it will clear all camera settings. Equally, if custom functions have been set, you would need to arrow across into the orange section of the menu, and on the final page, on page 5, you will see Clear All Custom Functions. To clear the custom functions, simply select OK to return the camera to factory standard settings. I hope this video has helped you understand more about the functions and features of your 5D Mark IV that will help push your creative photography to a new level.